Okay, folks, it's your buddy. Here I am in Hollywood. Actually, it's Port Orange, Florida. Very quiet now. It's only 11:30ish, maybe 11:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, EDT, EST, East Coast, USA. I'm Mike Messier. This is my Malignant film reaction. First of all, a spoiler-free section of our series here. I will say that if you're a horror movie fan, I think you'll love this movie. If you're a horror aficionado, or even like myself, a bit of a advanced casual horror film fan, I pretty much see all the horror films that are in theaters now. But for a while, in like the Saw era, the Hostel era, I was not into that generation of horror films. And I'm not going to see every single version of Leprechaun ever made. Okay, I might watch the Jennifer Aniston one, or uh, was Jennifer Tilly in one of those, or was she was the Bride Chucky? Point is, I probably know more about horror films than the average person, but I know that being at some of these conventions and so forth, there are people that are 10 times more interested in horror films than I am, or 10 times more knowledgeable. So I don't claim to be Mr. Horror Film, although some of my associates probably are. You might have seen my interview with Nick Princeby, who was a horror film actor of some note, a big note, actually. My buddy Tommy DiNucci, my other pal David Gear, they're all horror film producers of one kind or another. I'm just me, I'm just myself, I just have my opinions. But I would highly suggest, if you're a horror fan or a casual horror fan, go see Malignant. Go see Malignant. It's a good movie in the genre. Now, here's the catch. What I liked about this, well, here's the catch first off. If you are a person who's offended by movies with violence, not a lot of sex in this movie. I mean, I don't know where you would have shoehorned any sex or any nudity into this film. I don't think the story really didn't call for that. There was attractive women in this movie, that's for sure. The two sisters, the blonde sister, and the star sister, the characters, Sydney and Emily, or whatever the name was. But basically, a lot of violence in this movie. So I know some people, even in a fictional world of cinema, a fictional world of film, they get upset if they see violence. There is violence in this movie a lot. There is violence towards pregnant women, or a pregnant woman, just one. There is, deformities and all types of crazy shit. Violence. It's not the type of violence like the Protege movie had, like martial arts violence of bending arms and shit. This is more of a horror film violence. Although I've seen a lot of films these days where they like have to have like a protruding bone through skin, like arms getting bent backwards, and the I think that's called a compound injury, like what Joe Theismann had, or in the wrestling world, Sid Vicious had. Those compound injuries. So, folks, the point is, if you are squeamish, or if you just don't like violence or those type of things in your movies, I would say don't see this movie. To be quite honest with you, because if nothing, the story is good, but it's not so good that if you don't like violence, you couldn't get over this. And I know people who just can't handle it. They don't want to handle it. That's fine. A friend of mine, Vietnam vet, asked him, "Hey, do you go see like Vietnam movies like Platoon or Hamburger Hill, or to kind of, you watch those movies to see if they're like what you experienced?" And he said, "No, I don't go see those movies because they are like what I experienced, and they give me flashbacks. I already lived it once. Why would I want to see it again?" So anyway, everyone's got their fucking reasons. And as I've matured, or as Jim Ross would say, matured, I don't know why he can't pronounce the word mature, but he always says mature. But as I've matured, or as Jim Ross would say, matured, I've just realized that I can't push people to think the way that I think or to experience life the way that I experience it. They're going to do whatever the fuck they want. I can gently suggest to them things that I think will improve their goddamn lives. But 9 times out of 9, people don't listen to me. They don't follow my instructions. They don't do as I say. So I've just kind of given the fuck up. But anyway, I like this goddamn movie. What I liked about it, to pinpoint this madness of a review, is that the generation ago, where you had movies like Scream, or even before Scream, I think it was called Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is actually a very underrated film, the Nightmare on Elm Street series, which I think is a great series of films, by the way. A gentleman that I used to know, Steve Fierberg, was the director of photography on those films, as well as on Secretary. That must have been a hoot. But with Maggie Gyllenhaal and all her antics, and James Spader. But in any event, this film, Malignant, that I just saw here in Port Orange, really nice theater, by the way, such a nice, calm environment. Um, really pleasant here. There's just no one around. It's the best thing I like about where I am right now at this moment is that there's no one the fuck around me. It's like a well-lit place. I feel very safe. No, I'm fine. But there's just no one around, so that's nice. But what did I like about this movie? Well, first of all, it had a lot of tropes, if that's the word, of horror films that you like to see. Attractive women screaming, all types of good things. The sister thing, some twists and turns. I guess I'm going to give you spoilers, assholes, so prepare yourself. But I just liked the movie, and what I liked about it was the movie never. What's the fucking term that no one understands? Tongue in cheek. The movie never shows its hand, like as opposed to films like Scream, and I know Scream, and I was gonna say I Know What You Did Last Summer, but more so like Scream, where it's a horror film that's kind of riffing off a prior generation of horror films and playing off of that. This movie kind of does that in a different way. It never lets you know that it's in on the joke. You know what I mean? Like, it takes itself very seriously, but at times there's some campy acting, especially at the beginning of the movie, in the hospital or the experiment center, whatever you want to call it. Like, there's some campy fucking acting. Like, the opening scene is kind of campy, and you're like, is this a movie within a movie? Like, that's what I thought when I first saw the opening scene. Is this a movie within the movie scene? But it wasn't. Um, so there's some, like, I hate the word campiness. It's not quite campiness, but it's a little bit like they're trying to emulate an 80s horror film or an early 90s horror film with some of the style of acting, but then they never make a joke of it, or there's no punchline. It's like, oh, this is the real movie. Like, this is what I'm watching. So I like that, because then I'm thinking, are the filmmakers, I just had to think that whoever made this movie was having the time of their fucking lives making this movie with the fucking practical effects, with the I mean, some of the whatever the fuck CGI or After Effects, they don't look as good as other films. Like, they don't look as good as the Shanghai and the Ten Rings or whatever, but it's kind of fine. It kind of works for this movie because it's kind of a horror movie. It's a fucking horror movie. So I don't need the horror, presentation or whatever the fuck. I can suspend my disbelief. I can have fun with it. And by the time this movie really gets rolling, which is pretty much rolling the whole time, but by the time you start figuring out what the fuck's going on in this thing, we're almost home free. So you've bought into it, or I bought into it at least. Like, you buy into the absurdity. And when the big reveal happens, and I guess I'm being polite because I'm not revealing the big reveal, but once that big reveal happens, you're like, oh shit. And I was already caught up into the goddamn story, as weird as it was. And I was, emotionally invested. I was into it. You know what I mean? And kind of hoping that there might be, more of the romance with the blonde sister and the cop. You're expecting them to have a sex scene or something. If this truly was made in the 1980s, you would have seen that blonde sister in a shower scene with the cop or something. You know what I mean? Like, that would have just happened had this actually been made in 1984, that sister character, the blonde Sydney, would have been topless. But that was a different generation. That's not going to happen these days. Now it's all nice and safe. So I'm just telling you. But okay, so now I'm really going to start spoiling this fucking movie. So if you haven't seen it, I guess I would say go see the goddamn movie and come back to me, because now I'm going to give you some fucking laydowns of like actual things that I saw. The fuck when they reveal the goddamn parasite twin, holy cunt, fuck, that was just fucking great. It caught me by surprise. Boom, you got me. You got me. Hey, Carl, what's going on there, buddy? Carl's checking in. Carl's a big horror movie fan. Carl, I do suggest you see this movie. I'm giving away spoilers, Carl, so just be warned. But Carl and I have our Steven Seagal best films and best shark films and other. Carl's got his own playlist on the subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel as well as his own YouTube channel. So very good, Carl. But let me get back to what I was saying here, buddy. I like this fucking movie. When they showed the twin, like the parasitic twin, I'm like, oh fuck. And it's just Gabriel. Gabriel's the devil. So they didn't really get into that thing. You know, they kind of opened this Pandora, is Gabriel the devil? But we kind of swayed into a different direction. It's no, he's a parasitic twin, and he's like fucking on the back of your head, and they had to push the remaining chunk of his brain back into the pretty lady's brain, Emily or Madison, whatever the fuck her name is. I thought that was a great technique. Once again, the blonde sister was really quite lovely. I thought it was kind of cute that the forensics lady had a crush on the male cop. You know what I mean? Like everybody was kind of Romeoing up to this male cop guy, and he, for his part, he was a fairly good-looking guy, but he wasn't exactly James Dean or something. Like he didn't have all this screen presence, you know. Or I mean, like he didn't have much of a personality. The character, the actor, both. He was just kind of there. I kept thinking that, excuse me, the lady that played the, how do I say this without, without the female cop buddy, the buddy cop. I kept thinking like her character. I kept imagining like Wanda Sykes in the fucking role. You know what I mean? Like, no offense to the lady that played her, she did a great job. But even the way that her dialogue was written as a character, it seemed like whoever wrote it was a fan of Wanda Sykes and was like imagining Wanda Sykes. And this is, when you order Wanda Sykes from Wish, you get this actress who played the fucking female cop. No offense, lady. But I mean, look, people have been saying that about me. People have been saying horrible, cruel things to me on Facebook. Horrible comments by assholes and fucks that have been ridiculing me. But here's the thing, assholes. You're commenting about me. I'm not commenting about you, right? So any goddamned way. I liked the fucking movie. I thought it was a good movie. It was definitely, I mean, I don't know, like that term popcorn movie makes no fucking sense to me. But, I first heard that term in the DVD bonus of Hard Luck, which is a film that I actually am in, playing Sybil Shepherd's son, fight scene with Wesley Snipes and the director Mario Van Peebles, who's been extremely difficult to reach for the last 20 years. But beyond all that, I enjoyed this fucking film. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. It was just fun. It was just a good old-fashioned horror romp. A film that you can say, gee whiz, I saw it, and you got to scare, you got to laugh. Like I said, if this was actually made in the 80s, you'd have some topless scene with the sister or something, but these days, not so much. So is it a good film for horror fans? Most definitely. I think horror aficionados will appreciate the kind of fact that this movie does not tip its hat. It does not wink and smile. It's just plays it straight. But I got to think that whoever made this fucking movie is watching this movie, laughing their asses off, how they put this thing together. The actress that plays the lead, she's actually quite good because she's got a hard role to play. She's got to play possessed and all this crazy shit. She has the perfect face for this type of role. The beauty in distress, like she's got the perfect face. The beautiful woman who's in distress because of the things going on in her life. And the sister role, once in the sister, was quite lovely. Some loose ends in the movie, I guess you could say. Like, there's some things where a lot of, for instance, here's a thing I didn't like about the movie. There's something I didn't like about the movie. I don't like when it didn't really make sense that the Gabriel was making phone calls. Like, how would Gabriel know how to dial a phone? Like, how would Gabriel have access to a phone? Just Gabriel has telekinetic powers to fucking make phone calls without actually using a phone. The Gabriel makes phone calls things, you'd have to really break that down for me. I didn't quite buy that. There's also a scene where Gabriel and the sister, I think, are in the same place at the same time when they're having that fight scene with the cop. I could be mistaken, but I thought I saw the sister, the lead chick, and Gabriel were not on the same body attacking the cops. So I think there's some things in this movie that, even by this movie's own logic, don't make sense. So if you really wanted to hammer this movie a little bit and take a sledgehammer to it and look for holes in the slice of cheese that is this film, I suppose you could, and I suppose I just did. But in any fucking event, I still like the film. The mom, the biological mom, popping in at the end. There was a bit of this, folks. You ready? The proverbial 12 pounds of shit in a 10-pound bag. There was a bit of that going on with this movie. Like, sometimes it just feels like the movie had too much going on, and it's like, okay, I think I got everything I do, but it's like we could have taken the biological mom out. There's like we could have taken some chunks, one element or so could have been removed, but then again, it wouldn't be the whole tapestry of this fucking film. I do feel like, did they leave this thing open to a sequel? Kind of. I think with a sequel, if there were to be one, which I'd love to be in myself, by the way, call me, whoever the fuck made this movie. But I feel like there could be a sequel, but then we're gonna, like, the big reveal has happened, and Gabriel, so to speak. I mean, you could go to other kids in the fucking lab. That's what you could do with this film for a sequel. You could go to other stories, but I don't know if they left much for Gabriel to come back with, or if they did, would it be any different than just more of the same? Like, I don't really know what you could do as far as a sequel to this thing. Maybe they don't want to do a sequel. But I always think these days, every time I see a fucking movie, I'm like, yeah, are they leaving room for a sequel and leaving a door open for us to come back? Some films do and some films don't. This one, it didn't really feel like they were pushing for a sequel, but who the fuck knows? You can always do something. I mean, there was a sequel to The Wizard of Oz that I watched, which I think I was going to do a fucking video on, my thoughts on Return to Oz. But to be honest with you, I watched it and I wasn't really concentrating on it. Okay, so I did say this was going to be a weekend fucking review video, and I guess I just fucking forgot. But okay, I'll do a weekend review. Look, today is September. Now it's September 12th. It's almost the end of September 12th. Tomorrow's September 13th. Yesterday was September 11th, the 20th anniversary. Now, what did I do to personally commemorate? Well, for what it's worth, it might be worth a tinge. I did change all my social media for the most part. My Twitter, my Facebook, to not remember 9/11 banners, of course. And I did share a film, I think on September. I didn't want to share it on September 11th. I shared it on the 9th, which was this student film I did about the post 9/11 for two Lebanese cousins. You can see that. I title it The George Odd Show, although it's got a different title. It's terribly offensive, but that's what the director titled it. Greg Kinnon, good guy. I don't know whatever happened to him either. But in any event, good movie if you watch it. It's on Mike Axe playlist. The George Odd Show. George as in George, odd as in AADS. Yes, it's an odd spelling. If you look at the announcement section here, if you click on all the buttons on the top of your YouTube page, you should see announcements or community or whatever the fuck it's in there. My first post in there is like, so point is, I shared that on September 9th. I didn't want to share it on September 11th, although I've done that in past years. I've also noticed, folks, there's been years, maybe even last year or the year before, where 9/11 just happened and nobody seemed to fucking say a word. But I think because this year was the 20th year, and it's a weird thing because we've kind of run out of our allotment of holidays for the country. Although Juneteenth was kind of a holiday, or it was a holiday this year, in previous years wasn't recognized. But we are kind of in that weird situation where, sure, we'd love to have a fucking holiday for Juneteenth and for 9/11 and for everything, but you know what I mean? How are we gonna? We gotta fucking not have some holidays too, right? We've got to have some regular days. So I'm not diminishing Juneteenth or 9/11 or any day. I'm just saying that it has to be a balance, and that's something that is beyond my scope. I can't dictate how things happen, folks. I'm just an asshole like you. So any fucking way. But going back to this film review and the weekend review. So what did I do to commemorate 9/11? I watched on Amazon Prime Generation 9/11. Is what I watched. I guess I should do a separate fucking video, but I won't. Generation 9/11. It's a movie about, it's a documentary about kids whose fathers were killed in 9/11. Upbeat, huh? And how they've survived, and they get some special attention, and they're always getting trotted out for parades and special events and speeches. But some of them have thrived, and some of them not so much. But the movie kind of focuses on kids that have thrived. They call them 9/11 kids, or kids who lost their dads in 9/11. I guess it's all dads for whatever. I think one kid might have lost his mom, but in any event, if you do give a fuck, there was so many. A female told me that I should watch this Netflix, documentary on 9/11. I just couldn't handle it, to be honest with you. It's like not something I want to watch a million times. I've seen the towers fall, and every time you watch it, it's like you're watching thousands of people getting killed. I don't know if I can watch that every single day of the year or whatever the fuck. It's just disturbing. But I did watch this out of respect, obviously, to those that were killed, and the sacrifices of people going back into the towers to save other people. I mean, there's a good people I know were involved in, the man in the red bandana, and so on and so forth. But this Generation 9/11 was very deep and dramatic, but it's the human spirit. You know what I mean? We cannot be held down, and that's why when, on a side note, when you see Mick Foley get upset about carrying Cross as Demolition Cross, and I get upset about Keith Lee wearing a muumuu in the wrestling world, you know why? It's the human spirit. Okay. So any fucking way, nice to see you here, Carl. And for those of you that have hung and bung with this Mike's Instant Movie Review, if you're watching it in live time or in the rewind, thanks for checking in. I've got plenty of Mike's Instant Movie Reviews. In fact, if there's a movie that you recently saw that you see, gee whiz, I wonder what Mike's thought of this, just put Mike Messier and put the title of the film into your search engine or into the search engine on my list, on my Mike Messier YouTube channel, and you might find that I've reviewed several films for the last 2 or 3 years. In one film, actually, I reviewed twice, Black Panther, because I saw it when it first came out, and then I saw the reissue, out of respect to, I believe his name was Chadwick Boseman. So, if I have his name right, I hope I do. Oh my God, what a night. So, I'm here, and I'm going to end this wonderful review. Thanks for watching. I do say, once again, horror film fans will like this movie. So, I enjoyed it. Malignant. Good job, filmmakers. Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel.